All right, my econ apostles, we're getting ready to get started with the meat and potatoes of any economics course, demand and supply. Yeah, but before you run, you gotta walk. So we gotta start to deconstruct. We're gonna look at what is demand today, and we're gonna study the law of demand. So this is the schedule for today, no pun intended. We're gonna look at what is demand, then we're gonna see the law of demand. We're going to look at a demand schedule and incorporate into a demand curve. We're going to see what a change in quantity demand is besides what some people get it confused with a change in demand. We're going to look at that. We're going to see what a movement along the curve means. And finally, we're going to visit something called ceteris paribus. Yeah, that's right, or ceteris paribus, whatever the hell they call it. But economists use that because it's a very fundamental tool when we're studying the law of demand, and especially demand. So let's get to it, okay? All right, so what is demand? Well, what it is that you have to have for an economic demand for anything is to buy something, you have to have three components: the desire, the ability, and the willingness. Now, I want you to repeat that after me, okay? You need the desire, you need the ability, and you need the willingness. Now, back before I became a YouTube sensation, and I was living paycheck to paycheck prior to the days before I became the Econ Avenger. Let's say that I wanted a Maserati, or I wanted some expensive car that was out there, and I saw my friends had it. Would I really have a legitimate economic demand for a Maserati car, the most expensive sport car there is out there? Well, let's break it down. Let's say, do I have the desire to drive it? Sure, maybe I'm having a midlife crisis and I want to, look cool and drive something expensive. Yeah, I might have the desire for it. Would I have the ability to buy a $100,000 car if it's there on that much? Maybe I could if I went into big time debt and if I decided to tell my kids, hey, we're going to have to sell the house and tell my wife we're going to move into a trailer. So maybe I would have the ability, I guess, if I put everything else on hold. That's right. My life might suck, but at least I drive around a nice car. But the key thing, would I have the willingness? Remember, desire, ability, and willingness too. I have the willingness now to put my life in that situation to be able to buy something. So we're assuming that you're thinking rational as a human being when you really have an economic demand for something according to those three things. All right, so what is the law of demand? Basically, for anything that it is out there, whether it's a good or a service, is that the higher the price of whatever you go to buy, the higher the price, your quantity demand should be relatively lower. Now, this is the law of demand. This isn't the word on the street. This isn't that rumor has it. This isn't heard it through the grapevine. This is the law. Just like the laws, I got these. Oh, yeah. Okay, now, it's the law. If the price goes up of anything, we're assuming if you're a rational person, you're going to buy less of a quantity demand of it, right? If they lower the price of whatever you're looking for, hey, you probably, if you have half a brain, want to consume more in quantity of that good in question, okay? So that's the law of demand. So let's get into the nut and bolts here, okay? So what is a demand schedule and what is a demand curve? Hey, you can't see me if I move that way. Hey, you got to focus on the Econ Avenger here. So there's two ways of laying out that information for any business with their price policy and their quantity demand, and according to the law of demand. We have a demand schedule, which is in a table form, not with shares, okay, just a table by itself, table form. So it might look like this laterally, or it might look like this vertically, okay? So you put the arrays of prices in one column, and then you put the arrays of quantity demanded in the other. So you notice a funny trend here, okay? Let's say these are Econ Avenger masks, okay? Yeah, all right, I'm selling them now. Decided it's the big thing in the circle of econ studies. And you know what? For Halloween, these kids want to go as the Econ Avenger, especially high school students. So, as I start at a price of $50, I might assume that my stand of Econ Avenger Halloween mask, I'd probably only sell 10 of them. People only would want to buy 10 masks. It might be a relatively high price for them. So part of this is if you're a business, you have to experiment a little bit. You might survey some other businesses, see what similar products are at. That's fascinating about businesses. You really don't know where you're at to start with, okay? You might think your product is better than what it is and charge too high of a price, or you might lowball yourself. But anyway, so notice I decided to sell my mask for $40, and you see the quantity demand, it increases to 20. Okay, if I lower them to 30, I can expect to sell 30. At 20, I can expect to sell 40. And at $10, I can expect to sell 50. Well, that's the law of demand. They move in opposite ways, price and quantity, opposite ways. Price, quantity demanded, okay? So now, as I lower my price, I'm increasing my quantity demand. Does that make sense to you? It better make sense to you. If you increase your price, you're going to sell less in a quantity, all right? So they move in opposite or indirect or a negative way, all right? Okay, we got that. So we have a demand schedule here and here. Then you plug and chug the numbers on what we call a demand curve. It's important for you to understand, knuckleheads. Okay, when you draw this curve, the price has got to go on the vertical axis. Now, don't ask me what an X and Y axis is. I don't remember that stuff. But I do know that price is the vertical axis. And if I start here at the origin and I move up, okay, I'll see $10, $20, $30, $40, $50. Okay, then I'm going to see that the quantity demand is going to be on the horizontal axis, all right? Notice I go away from the axis 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Okay, then it's just a matter of plugging and chugging the numbers. So you see at the price of 50, you look at the demand schedule and you go bam, 10, and you put a big dot right there. Then you notice at 40, yep, you could sell 20 of them. Boom, you go right there, you put a dot right there. And you basically plot the points and you see you have a downward slope. Remember that, downward or negative slope, because there's an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. All right, so it goes downward once you plug and chug the numbers. Inverse, negative, opposite relationship. Now notice that as I lower my price, it's a movement along the curve. A movement along the curve. It's just a change in price is changing the quantity demanded. That's all it is. Now, as we're going to see later on, other factors can happen that might change the actual demand, but it sure in the hell isn't going to be a change in the price, because all the change in price does is change the quantity demanded. Get that through your thick skulls, because I guarantee you half of you knuckleheads are going to miss that on any quiz or any exam. Other factors. Ceteris paribus means everything else has to stay the same. All we're changing is the price of something. And if you change the price of something, what is it? It's a movement along the curve or a change in quantity demanded. Ceteris paribus. Everything else remains the same. We're just changing the price, okay? We're not assuming it is more popular. We're not assuming that a new advertising campaign. We're not assuming my good friend The Rock says, hey, you know, my buddy Econ Avenger, he's taught me a lot about econ. Let me put in a good word for him. No, none of that, okay? Not I'm using new materials or anything. No, we're just assuming I'm changing the price. Okay. That's the law of demand. We got it covered. We know desirability and willingness. We know the law of demand. Price goes up, quantity demand goes down. Price goes down, quantity demand goes up. We know what a demand schedule is in a table form. We plot the points, and we got a downward sloping demand curve. We know what a change in quantity is caused by just a change in price, right? We know that you change the price of something, it's a movement along a demand curve. And finally, we know ceteris paribus means all we're changing is the price. Everything else we're assuming is remaining constant. No other factors are affecting the product in question. All right, I think we got a lot done. Yeah. Okay, so tip of the day, okay? You want to get these. Yeah, you want to get these. Whenever you're working out, try to, like, let's say curls, go a little bit slower. Yeah, slow. Up and down. Yeah, go up. Remember to exhale as you're contracting. Inhale, exhale, go slower. Keep constant tension on those biceps. Really, trust me, guys. Curls for the girls. Take it away. Take it from the Econ Avenger. See you guys.